In this video, we're going to talk about your painting based on an artist. And this one we also touched upon before you left, and this would have been the one that you would have done for homework. So some people have already started it since it was for homework. They got their artist chosen and they've gotten some of their research done. But if you're just starting off, this is the paper that I gave you at the beginning. You're going to find a painter. If you don't know any painters, you can visit virtual museums. It's really popular right now since you can't go to an actual museum. Just about every major museum and even some of the smaller ones are allowing you to take a virtual tour of the museum. You can walk around a museum in a virtual tour, find something that you like, find out who the artist is, and maybe that's the artist you can pick. You can research by style. So do you like abstract? Do you like impressionism? Do you like realism? Do you like pop art? Do you like cubism, pointillism? Faves are really, really colorful paintings. Do you like revolutionary and romanticism? Those are kind of, romanticism is about nightmares, and revolutionary was about politics and changing people's opinion. You can research by the purpose. So is it an illustration telling a story? Is it a graphic novel? Is it something about social change? Do you have a particular period of history that you like and you want to do some art from that period of history, an artist that was important during that period of time? Or do you want a medium? Do you want it to be in oil, acrylic, watercolor, or spray paint? Unfortunately, everything's going to have to be done in acrylic, but it could still look like one of those other types of mediums as well. So you're going to choose your painter. That's how you're going to go about finding one. And then you're going to research the painter. So you want to know when they lived and when they died, or maybe they're still living now. You want to know where they lived. And if they lived in a variety of places, what are the variety of places? What is their art classified as far as style? So when I talked about Edward Hopper, I was telling you that he is both classified as a realist and he's also classified as an impressionistic painting. So remember I showed you Nighthawks. It's very, very eerie. It's very, very strange, the intense colors. And that way it's kind of surreal and not so realistic. And then in the landscapes, it is kind of realism, but it's also a very generalized realism. It has a little bit of abstraction in it as well. Okay, so you're going to figure out what style painting they are doing. You're going to study the artist's works. You're going to notice what type of composition they use. You're going to notice their color scheme, the division of negative space, the theme. Usually there's a couple things that they like to paint the most. The application of paint, do they layer it? Is it very, very smooth? Is it kind of rough? Is it meticulous and almost realistic, or is it more expressionistic? And does it reflect any of the comments on events that are happening in the artist's life? Anything historical or personal events during the artist's life that would influence their art. So if you think about artists painting today, obviously the virus is going to affect their artwork. You would see either a change of color in their artwork or a change of topic in the artwork. Do you see that in the artist that you choose as well? So you can fill in the little spaces here. It kind of goes from asking you to kind of look at those things to recording it just so that you remember what you're doing. And then your theme, you can kind of branch off a little bit. So let's say that you chose Andy Warhol. Andy Warhol painted in the 60s and in the 70s, and he painted famous people. So you can go and you can choose a person who would have been famous after Andy Warhol passed away, or you can choose somebody who is famous right now that more than likely Andy Warhol would have painted. The same thing with anyone who's doing social issues. You could do a social issue that would have occurred right around the time of their death or a little bit afterwards, or you can have a social issue that is right now. Okay, so it either can be from the time they lived or that same type of thing, but how they would approach the events that are happening today. Totally up to you. So we talked about Nighthawks, and I talked to you about Edward Hopper, how I liked Edward Hopper, always have, because he simplified his colors, and I love surrealism, so I also like that little piece of kind of trying to decide what it's all about. He also had people that were by themselves, or he had a number of people in the piece of artwork, but they didn't look at each other. So this one is just a lonesome girl out paddling in her kayak. You can see the simplification in the landscape as well as in the water as well. And then lastly, you'll have a piece of paper that looks like this. This is in a Word document. Maybe it will be in Google Docs type of format, where you're going to answer some of the questions. This is the grading rubric for it right here. And then you are also going to attach 2 photos of your work to this as well. Okay, so when you pass it in, you'll have the questions that I asked you on this page. You'll pass this page in. You can pass it in before, or you can pass it in with it. I believe I have it on the computer as before, just so I know that people are kind of working and not getting too far behind. But if you didn't pass it in before and it's late, no big deal. But if you didn't, then you're going to pass in these 2, as well as you're going to attach 2 photos of your work on this page, and you're going to pass it in through Google Classroom. Okay, so that's painting based on an artist. You can decide which size you want to go. You can go the smaller one if you want to, or you can go the larger one. It's up to you. And remember, these little divots can come out fairly easily. If you just wet the back of this with some water, it will start to stretch out some of the canvases that have gotten a little bit stretched out in shipping. All right, I can't wait to see what you do. Please impress me, but most of all, impress yourself.